All right, everybody, welcome. Thank you for coming in person. Thank you to the people who are online. Tonight's topic is customer discovery. And customer discovery helps you to figure out whether your product is a product you should pursue or not. Before we get started, though, we're going to review the rest of our sessions. I'll be back here on Thursday. We'll be talking about TAM, SAM, SOM. That's my favorite topic. It's all about understanding your market. So tonight we need to understand if there is a need for your product. And then on Thursday, we're going to figure out how to break down that market.
Okay, so can you switch from the camera to the slides, please?
You have to share or do whatever. Yes.
Thank you.
And again, before we get started, we're going to talk to 3 people and ask them what they learned last week and what they're excited about for the rest of the program. So I'm going to pick 1 person in the room and 2 online. You'll have to help me with that. So I'm going to pick you with the Rugrats. Okay. Tell us, can you get the microphone to him?
I'll be the mic.
Okay, but somebody has to watch the door too.
Yep,
Okay.
Also, last week I put together this handbook, which was actually very helpful for me to be able to actually go through the business plan that I have created already. Just kind of like make sure there wasn't any holes, and that was very helpful. And we talked about like the different reasons for our product and things like that, and all the different problems and the best ways to use it. And I think that last week I just went away with the idea like just get started. So I went out and I put up some advertisements in some local places, started a sweepstakes, got some entries already, talked to some people about the product, and I actually already have the produdt. I got some. I ordered another
sweepstakes for free.
Yeah, it's just free sweepstakes.
Okay, good, because there's rules in that.
I even have the rules. Under $50, I don't really care too much.
Okay.
My marketing background, I understand that stuff. Thank God. I've used lots of lawyers. If you keep it under $50, they leave you alone.
Okay.
But no, yeah, it's going well. It kind of just helped me go ahead and jumpstart what I'd already done. And, talking to the mentor on Thursday was very helpful as well. Get some one-on-one time. I just asked that question. What do you think I should do next? And that's what he told me. He's like, you should go ahead and just start talking to vendors because you have a physical product. You got more products coming and, no time like the present.
Yep. Got to plunge in. Okay. For the people who are just coming in now, there are some snacks over there on that counter. All right. Andrew, can we pick 1 person, the first person from online? I can't see anybody. So it's up to you.
Let's pick Erin. She's been so helpful.
Yeah.
Erin, we're
Erin,
picking
go
you.
ahead.
Hi, everybody. So last week, I was really happy to see that the 30-page business plans are out and that with just 1 sheet, you can really get all of the information and planning that you need to. That was my big takeaway because I was still trying to wrap my head around the 30-page one. And it was just too much. It was like, there's too many choices that I just don't know the answers to.
It's very intimidating. Yeah.
Yeah. The meeting with the mentors was really great. I got to know a lot of people. I saw that there are people in this group that are at all different levels, and we are all just doing amazing things. So I'm just really impressed. So yeah, that's it.
Okay. Somebody else online, Andrew? No. Lori? Golden?
Me? Yeah. Okay, sure. Why not? What the heck? The canvas was really good, and I had a business plan that was fairly complete, but it didn't flow. Like all the parts of the business, like the partner angle, the direct angle, the this thing and that thing, were all like independently pretty good, but none of it flowed into like a big strategic plan. But after I did the canvas over the weekend, I was able to, it all came together, me, AI, and we had a blast, and out came like a 30-page document that's probably too long, but it's pretty good. So Thank you.
I would say 30 pages is probably still too long, but
But it's, I mean, but it's pretty robust and there really are a lot of like it's a 5-year scale plan. Like it's not just like a early business plan. It's like a full investor.
that's
You
fantastic.
see, yeah. So I'm happy about that. I have one quick question. I was asking it in the chat, but since I'm got everyone's attention, I might as well ask. I may come in for a physical thing, but what are the backgrounds of the mentors? I'm just curious. Are they people who've started up businesses?
Yes. So if you review the first class,
I missed the first class, so I'm
Okay,
probably
but-
asking. Sorry if I'm being redundant. Apologies.
no, it's in Disco. The video is linked.
Okay.
And so we do go over everybody's background.
Okay, cool.
in that
Thank
way.
you so
Okay.
much. I appreciate that.
No problem. And you'd be able to read it on the slides too. So you can go at your own pace or, whenever I'm listening to a podcast or watching a video, it's at least 1.5 speed.
Okay.
You gotta get a lot more done.
Yeah, got it. Cool. Thank you.
Okay. All right. And so the beauty of the business model canvas is that it's small and you shouldn't throw it away, but you should be continually improving it. So make a whole new one. And it'll be amazing to look back in 2 or 3 years at what you were doing when you first started and where you are now and how it's changed. And so they can be a living document. You don't have to, it's not a Bible. You're not going to live by it. You're going to iterate, you're going to innovate, you're going to change. And so when you have, let's say you get a great partner, then you may want to like rejigger everything because you can use that partner to reach into new channels, new customers, and that partner may be able to lower your cost. It may open up a whole new customer segment. So, so when you have a significant change, you may want to revisit and make a new business model canvas. Okay, so today let's dig into knowing your customers. So market research, that's really for Thursday. We're going to cover that more, but this is like, it's face-to-face research. It's going out into the public to see if there really is a need. So before you build a prototype, before you spend any money, it's free to go to Fremont Street and talk to people and find out if your idea is something that people will pay for. Okay. I would have edited out a bunch of these things. So, okay, so customer discovery is what we're all about. This is like the product, the business life cycle. You ideate, you're going to design, you're going to go into production, you're going to sell, and then you're going to do it all over again. You're going to improve your product or service. And so customer discovery comes in there right between ideating and designing. Okay, so you want to make sure, a lot of times engineers, they love their product because they're technical and it solves a problem for them, but it may not solve a problem for enough other people to actually go into production with that product. So that's what customer discovery is going to help us do. So back in 1996, a guy named Jeff something or other, Suchek, I think, came up with this idea of having a device in his pocket where he could keep track of all of his appointments and all of his contacts and what he needed to do during the day, or even if he had like brain farts and he needed to record that idea right away. And so he didn't know if he could train himself to use a device that would be in his pocket. So he built this prototype out of paper and cardboard, and he whittled down a dowel to use as a stylus. And so for 2 weeks, he walked around with this thing in his pocket. And every time somebody asked him if he could do something, he would check his calendar. But he wasn't actually checking his calendar because it wasn't on there. But he was thinking in terms of, that is where all my data would be. And so after 2 weeks, he decided that it was something that he would use. And so if he would use it, he was a busy tech guy. He thought there would be other tech bros who would use it too. So this is the iteration then of what came out. And it was really the first handheld device. And it was, you can see, 9 years. I can't do the math. 9 years before, maybe 11 years before the iPhone. So Steve Jobs was smart, he was brilliant, but this is kind of the precursor. So, and remember, everything was dumb when it first came out, except for the iPhone. So the BlackBerry, you could type on it, you could send a message, but it wasn't interactive, it wasn't fun, it didn't have, you know, weather radar on it. So, but this is the evolution. So this is going to be a two-part process. And when we're asking questions, we want to be very open-ended. Anytime you're doing any kind of a survey where you're asking information from other people, you can craft your questions in such a way that it leads them to an answer. You have to kind of guard against this. You don't want to lead them to an answer because you want to find out whether this business is worth your time and your money. And so you want to be as neutral as possible when you're asking the questions so that you get an honest answer. Here's the caveat. People want to please other people. So if they're willing to stop and talk to you, they're going to try to figure out what you want to hear. And they may be inclined to tell you that. And that's why it's really important that you craft the questions and you kind of build up in a way that doesn't really lead them. So we're going to ask the potential customers, and then we're going to come back later after we've collated all the information that we've gathered, and we're going to like demonstrate like Jeff did with his little cardboard prototype of what it was. That if you have the ability to make a prototype, then you can ask more questions about the product and refine whether you are providing something that they will actually buy. And you're going to ask questions about how much they would pay for it too. So first you have to describe what led you to discover this problem that you're solving. And then you have to couch it in such a way that it's understandable, which is easy for like normal people to do. And sometimes for scientists, it's not so easy to do. So you want to talk to people even about the way that you're going to ask your questions to see if they understand what you mean by what you're saying. So we want those questions to be open-ended and unbiased. So here we are. Now you guys have paper in front of you. Andrew, did we attach this in Disco so they can access it? So everybody online, you would be able to go to Disco and download these questions. In the room, I didn't put out a bunch of pens, but we could fix that if anybody needs a pen. I've given you enough space for you to craft your own questions. So the basics are here, but you should personalize them for your product without describing your product yet. We're just trying to understand if the problem is worth solving. So have you experienced this situation? Okay, I wake up in the morning and I don't know what my day entails. And so I would love to see it on the ceiling. Something where as I'm waking up, I can just look up and it's like, oh yeah, I get to get my hair cut today. And then I've got dinner out. And in between, I have all of this really hard work that I have to do. So, okay, so we've identified a problem that you perceive in a solution that you would like to utilize, but we can't talk about the solution yet. So you have to ask the question, do you ever wake up in the morning and really wonder like you've totally forgotten what your day is like? And if they can answer yes to that, then you can ask these follow-on questions. Do you find it to be a problem, or do you just like get your phone out and then you've got your problem solved? That might be too leading a question. All right, so is it a problem for you? If it's not, and you're afraid they're going to walk away from you because it's not a problem for them, then you can ask, okay, do you think it would be a problem for other people? And who are those other people? Where would I find them? Why do you think they're experiencing this situation? Okay, how are you, if they do say that they experience the same issue, you can ask them how they're dealing with it, because it may not be a big enough problem for them to want to use a solution. They may be just fine whipping out their phone. So you have to ask the question of like, is it a big problem? How are you solving it now? Do you think you might be able to find an easier solution? Would that work for you? Because if they say, I don't really need an easier solution, I'm good, then you should move on to your next idea. Yes, Sadia. Well, it could be. I mean, I'm just making stuff up. So yeah, we don't have to get too serious about it. Yeah, but like what I do recommend when you go out to do these questions is go to a busy place and please, please find people you don't know. Okay, if there are people you don't know, they're really not going to try to guess what you're after. Whereas your family, your mom, your best friend, they're going to say, yes, it's the best idea ever, even if they don't believe it. So that's why it's important to talk to strangers.
Maggie?
Not your mom. Your mom would be really harsh.
Maggie?
Is that Cara?
Hi.
Hi.
We have a comment in the chat. Can you speak to B2B questions?
B2B questions. Okay, so you like Fremont Street's not going to work for you. So if you are developing a business to business idea, then you need to go where other business people are. So oftentimes that's going to be a trade show, or it could be an industry sort of meetup, but you will have to try to get to the people who will ultimately be your customer. And I find that when people are building B2B businesses, it's because they already do know that business. And so they're probably already aware of the trade shows where people go, or if they have an industry meetup, if they have a networking event, those types of things. So that's where you're going to go to talk to your people. And if you don't know exactly where they might be, and let's say it's medical, then you can try calling into hospitals to find out who the person is that does this sort of purchasing for this sort of product. So don't be afraid to do the research. Also, you can do the research. I don't know that I actually give you a research librarian's name in this presentation. I do on Thursday, but at the university, they have a ton of databases where you can do research to try to figure out what the title is of the person who might buy your product or service. Can you expand on the question? Yes.
So talking about business, what if you have a product that you plan to sell through vendors?
Okay, the question is about a product that you plan to sell through vendors. So your customer are those vendors. Okay, it's usually easy to get in touch with vendors because they think that you're trying to buy their product instead of you trying to sell them something. Yeah. Yes, and still industry. Yeah, you guys are all part of the same industry. So, okay, and then there may be wholesalers.
Kind of work.
Yes, so there may be wholesalers that'll be easier for you to call on. And wholesalers are always interested in new products that they can add to their product line if it's complementary or if there's a high margin. Okay. All right, let's go back to our questions here. Yes. Question in the
What about marketplaces that might potentially have multiple customer personas?
So are you developing a two-sided marketplace?
Yes.
So the two-sided marketplace is difficult. So you must be a glutton for punishment. It's difficult because it's the chicken and the egg thing, right? So you need a certain number of users and you need a certain number of providers. And so for you, I would say it's very important that you try to build up your mailing lists on both sides before you launch your product. And you want to get some users on both sides too. Yes. Is that an adequate answer for you?
Yeah, I can work with that for now.
Yeah, one side is probably going to be more business and the other side is probably going to be consumer. So it's a little bit easier to talk to the businesses, but it may not be as easy to bring them on board because they're probably solving the problem in a different way to begin with.
Okay, cool.
Okay, Andrew. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a question online from Sophia. My business isn't solving a problem, but more so providing an experience of leisure and luxury. How would I answer those questions?
Yes, and so I'm surprised, I get this question every time. Well, what if you're an artist and you're providing something that's beautiful? How do you find your audience? And that is tougher. It's definitely tougher to be a vendor of art. Or in this experience, driven one, which is what it sounds like, people move away from pain and toward pleasure. So often we talk about this pain avoidance, this solving of a problem, because that's much clearer cut. Getting them to move toward pleasure is harder. So you have to inspire your audience with your beauty or with your experience, and it's going to be a memory. And so you have to talk about your product slightly differently about the pleasure that it's going to bring so that you move them over the mark so that they're willing to invest in whatever your experience or your art is. And over time, you will find who your audience is. There are ways to network among the art culture, especially in Las Vegas. There's a lot of it. And so I would suggest that you do that. But there's definitely a different way to handle things when you're trying to move people towards pleasure than when you're trying to solve a painful problem. Is that adequate?
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So the idea tonight is to spend a little bit of time working on your questions. Do you have any questions about these questions? How many others do you know that experience the situation? How long should you have to wait for the solution to work? All right, this is if you're getting into a software solution for something, there can be a high learning curve for that. And so you want to probe into that aspect of what your product is like. How much time are you willing to invest in learning it? So even if it's something as simple as, okay, so I have one of those robot vacuums. I have no idea how it works. So I gave it to my husband and he, does stuff on the phone. So the question is like, are people going to be able to invest a small amount of time for this great benefit that you are providing? And if it's a very, very painful problem, they are willing to spend more time to learn it. But if it's a very basic problem, they may not be. Let's see, are you willing to pay for a better solution? Okay, we didn't say, would you pay $19.95 for this? Like, do you think you would pay for a better solution? The follow-on question would be, how much would you be willing to pay? And this is critical too, because you may find that there is a need for it, but they're not willing to pay enough to pay for the product and give you a profit. And so they may only be willing to pay for what it costs. And that's tempting. It's very tempting as a founder to want to pursue that, thinking, oh, okay, well, I just have to get over the hump. I just have to be ingrained in everybody's thing, and then I'll be able to raise prices. I would say no. No, it might happen, but the odds are against you. So if they're not willing to pay a price where you can make a profit from the get-go, go on to your next idea. All right, if it's a one-time solution, how often are you willing to pay for it? So I usually just think of hair color, right? It's a one-time solution, but it only lasts 6 or 8 weeks. So if you know you're going to be doing this 8 times a year, how much are you willing to pay for it? So, or how often would you be buying this solution? So maybe it's a dog bed that's going to last 2 years. Okay, so you're going to buy another one in 2 years. So you have to kind of phrase your questions with your solution in mind without telling them what it is yet, so that you can figure out if it would be a viable business. Now, there's so many pet owners in the country that, having 2-year obsolescence is probably fine. Okay, so you guys want to spend just 10 minutes working on your questions, and I will field any questions that you guys have while you're doing that. Yes? Yeah, for the second part, we're going to actually talk about the solution, but we're going to talk about a solution that we have refined after analyzing all of this data. Andrew, do you have any questions online?
What would you suggest for a business that is already somewhat established?
The question is, what would I suggest for a business that is already somewhat established? And so is this a new product for that business? We'll get to you in a sec.
No, it is not.
It's not. Okay, well, if you wanted to refine your product, you could still go out and do this sort of questioning of potential customers. I mean, if you have already a customer base, you can do surveys with your customers. How would we, and this comes to the next part, how would you like to change this product? What else should it do? Would a different color be better? Is there something that it does that's annoying that we should eliminate? So if you already have an existing product, you can ask these types of questions when you're talking to your customers and potential new customers. Okay, all right. What's your question?
How do you describe a company purpose as a fashion designer?
How do you describe a company purpose as
A fashion design.
in fashion design? Fashion is so subjective. I find it to be a very, very difficult path to try to forge. So again, talking to people who like similar types of fashion are going to be your best bet to add to their wardrobe something that's spiffier or flashier or different. So I would be looking for similar people, similar customers. Do you have any more questions? You're good?
Okay, just raise your hand and I'll come.
Hello, welcome. That building over there, yeah, we're suite 180. Okay. Sorry, now you know where you should be. Oh, and did everybody check in? You check in with a QR code. We'll flash the QR code at the end of the session too. So we're working on customer discovery questions. You've got a set of questions in front of you. Right now we're having people think about their product or service and trying to customize those questions for you. Do you need a pen? Okay, you're good. Well, the first part is crafting a description of what led you to create your product or service. So it's kind of Seinfeld. Did you ever notice this particular situation? So that really is the first part. Well, yeah, Seinfeld, when he does his comedy, did you ever notice? When he does his comedy, he starts off, did you ever notice? Oh, okay. Well, maybe it's a different comedian and I'm wrong. Well, so the first part is crafting a little story, not too long, 2 or 3 sentences about what led you to create your solution, whether it's a product or a service. Okay, it's a lot of questions. You're not going to get to all of them in this 10 minutes. And we'll give you a couple more. Okay, so Sadia's question is because one of her customer segments are minor children. And so when you're doing your customer discovery, I would suggest that you do it at a place where there will be parents with children so that you can catch the attention of the kids, but you want the input of the parents because if they won't pay for it, it's not going to happen. Right, because that's just creepy.
It's everybody's time.
So I would consider going outside a theater that's showing a kids movie. Like the fair when it comes to town, possibly farmers markets, depends. The circus. So you got to just think about family thing. You could go to the bowling alley on a Saturday morning. Yeah. Okay,
We have some questions online if you
questions
can take those.
online. Let's go with those and then we'll move on. Yes?
Okay. Do we want to focus on questions that are open-ended or are yes, no questions good too?
Yes, no, or short answers. So we can do both.
Okay. How many positive results are we looking to get? Ask 1,000 and get 100 thumbs up is 10% of the number of people you ask. What are you shooting for?
So did everybody in the room hear that question? So the question was, how many yeses are you trying to get to? If you ask 1,000 people, which is a lot, don't try to do that. And you get 100 yeses, is that good enough? So it depends on the price point of your product.
I hope you wash your hands.
You'll be washing hands? I'm sorry? Oh, that was just, okay. So 1,000 people is an unrealistic number of people to try to talk to. I would say when you go out the first time, if you can get 20 or 25, you're doing pretty well. If you feel like you've got mixed results, you might go out and do the survey again with the same first set of questions and see how things are going. It should be obvious to you, although you know what? I did get a pitch deck in from a company, and they tried to justify that there was a market for what they were doing. And I looked at their results and I said, no, there's not. And they said, yes, there is. And it's like, well, okay, but I would say, why don't you work on it for 6 months, see if you can get any sales. And if not, then you should move on to your next idea. Yeah, so how many yeses? You want generally more yeses than nos. And you also, when you're getting to the questions about pricing and what their desire would support in the way of price, you want to be harsh with yourself. It's a huge investment of time and emotion to start a business and to build it. And so if you don't have really positive thoughts about it when you're starting out, when it gets rough, you're just going to want to go hide in a hole. Next question.
That is all for now.
That's all?
Yep.
Where's those yes and no questions?
Someone else mentioned that online surveys reach a lot of people too.
They do, but I think it's important to speak face to face to people. I think it's too easy for people to randomly fill out online surveys where they actually don't have an interest in giving you the truth. They just have an interest in filling out a survey. So, yes, Sergey.
It's helpful, for example, to record this conversation with our customers and to put them on YouTube channel to show it to investors, like to know if they
You're
are-
getting way ahead of yourself there.
Huh?
You're getting ahead of yourself. Okay. You're thinking about investors when you should be thinking about, do I do this business or not? Not investors yet. So people will be reluctant to talk to you if you're recording them. So I would say, don't do that. If you get further down the line, like if they're repeat, for example, if you go to a church that you don't regularly attend to poll people there, and you do this first set of questions, and then you come back and you're talking to the same people, you can also, when you're doing this first bit of discovery, if they're very interested in your product or service, you can ask them if they're willing to share some contact information. And so if you're going down the path with the same people, with different iterations or different sets of questions, then at some point they might be comfortable being recorded. But it's not something that you should start off doing. It's just that, again, that's a little creepy too. Okay. All right. But as I said, if you have enthusiastic people who are interested in your product and they're like, oh, come on, tell me about it. Tell me what it is. They could just be curious, or they could really be interested in the solution, in which case you should try to get contact information, even if it's just like their name and an email where they can choose not to respond. And then say, okay, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be back with the refinements that this survey and talking to these people have come up with. And would you like me to let you know when I'm doing that? Because I may have a prototype to show you. And so they may be interested in hearing from you again.
what's your favorite color, so I know what colors I want to order.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's too many colors, I can't order all the colors. I only want to order like 3 or 4.
Right. So what's your name?
Brian,
Brian in the room is saying that he did a little survey on colors because he couldn't order all of the colors. And so generally speaking, though, black, white, and blue are your basic favorites.
lime green, orange.
So you're going for the flashy people.
Yeah,
Okay. He did lime, orange, and black.
for now.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Hi, yeah. So, when we look for these potential folks to ask, if our product is highly focused on a particular customer base persona, would it be in our best interest to go to that place, the place where they converge, those types of folks, or
Okay.
just go randomly to Fremont Street?
You can do a little bit of random, but if you like, for example, if your people are martial arts people, go to martial arts clubs.
Got it.
Go to the ones you don't know and just talk to everybody that you can.
Great. That was that's
Yeah.
all I want to know.
All right, so now we're going to test the solution. So after we have done all of our questions, and you should bring a clipboard and you should bring lots of copies of your questions so that you can record the answers. It's a little overwhelming to take back 20 sheets of paper that have 20 different opinions on them, but it's important that you put it into a spreadsheet or you feed it into Claude and ask Claude, what insights do you gain from all of these different answers to these questions? And I highly recommend that. LLMs are great for doing this kind of analysis. Claude is an AI from Anthropic. Notebook LLM might be able to do this too, ChatGPT. So all of these AI large language model artificial intelligence things are great at pulling out data. I'm having a love affair with Claude this week. He's looking at my calendar and my Gmail and the things that I spend time on to help make me more efficient in everything that I do. And it's been a fun experience. Claude costs $20 a month. Claude could knock at my calendar, but there's certain permissions that you have to do this. So there are steps that you have to take if you want to do that kind of a thing. But like scanning in data like this is, if you can make it into a PDF, most of the language models can read it and parse it. All right, so we're going to take all this data, we're going to analyze it, we're going to see if we can make refinements to whatever product or service that we first came up with, using the wisdom of the crowd to try to find, and there may be things that come up again and again, and those are the types of things that you should try to incorporate into your product or service before you go out and test your solution. So this time, instead of trying to identify the problem and figure out whether it's something that people are willing to pay for you to solve, we're hoping the answer is yes. And so now we're going to refine our product or solution. And now we're going to go talk about it. And we're going to ask more questions about it. And we're going to ask repeat questions about willingness to pay and what amount they would be willing to pay. That in itself could be telling, because when you're first talking about a concept, they may not see its value as much. They may say, oh, okay, yeah, I would be willing to pay something for that solution. But if you can refine your solution and be able to describe it better, then it may raise its value so that they're willing to pay more for it. So these are the questions that we have here. Again, you're going to describe the problem. You're going to let them know that you've already done a survey of, 60 other people who are just like you. And I took their input. I took it and applied it to my idea to improve it. And so I'd like to share my idea, my solution with you. And so you're describing the problem, you're showing how your solution solves the problem, and then you're asking them if they think it actually does solve the problem. Sometimes the cure is worse than the disease. And so it doesn't really solve the problem, it just adds all of these other aggravations to it. So you're going to ask if it's going to solve the problem, why or why not. This is more discovery. It's going to enable you to find other aspects that you could possibly build into your product or solution that you hadn't thought about. What else do you think it should do? How would you change it? This is often where color comes in, or shape or size of the thing. Well, that's great, but it's like, it's got to be this big. I wouldn't buy it if it were this big. Yes.
So at one point, say you had, the prototype or a product or a demo, if it's an app or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking like around 11, would that be when you brought it out? Like how much would
Question
you,
11?
yeah, how much would a faster, better solution be worth to you? Like when would you bring out, or would you
In the
never?
first set of questions, you shouldn't bring it out at all.
Okay.
That's what this
That's
set
what I
of
was thinking.
questions is for.
Gotcha, that's the next set of questions.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
it's testing the solution.
Sounds
The
good.
first one is really discovery about whether it's a problem we're solving. And then this set is to actually talk about your solution. All right, how would you change it? Do you think the others you know with this problem would like this solution? Why or why not? What would you be willing to pay for this solution? So it'll be interesting to see how the first time you asked about willingness to pay, and this time after you've described the features and the way that it works, whether they're willing to pay more for it. All right, how often would you buy it? And that is a function of how severe the problem is and how well your solution fixes it, or if it fixes it one time, and this has to do with your solution. All right, would you consider testing an early version of this if made? Here's another opportunity to gather information, to actually get a name, get an email, maybe a phone number, so that you have built-in beta testers. Yes, Sadia.
They made so many vast improvements to the product, they now claim part ownership. They're like, I said you should make it green. All 50 of us said you should make it green at my book club. And now you have green ones and your sales have gone up 20%. So we want some of that because it was our input that made you more profitable.
Where's the fun factor?
Yeah. You know what? The next time we meet, I'm going to bring you cookies, and thank you very much.
Yeah. Buy what?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask, is before showing any kind of prototype, would you then have like an NDA?
No. Oh my God, no. No. This is very early, and inventors sometimes think that their ideas are worth $1 million. It's the execution on the idea that is so much harder than coming up with an idea. You've got a prototype, but they're not going to testing. Yeah. Yeah. Would they consider testing an early prototype? It really depends on your product. In most cases, it's still going to be no. Andrew. If you don't trust that they're, a genuine person who's going to be testing your product, then don't let them have it. They're going to try to reverse engineer it. But that percentage of people that will do that is so small. It's so much smaller than people think it is. You have to have resources. You have to want to do that. Right. Okay. Yeah, that's what the cookies are for.
Invite people over to your house and make it fun.
They didn't have to share their opinions with you. Opinions are like buttholes. Everybody's got one.
Companies hear it all the time. They go and ask people all kinds of questions about Coke.
None of them are that pretty.
Kinds of stuff.
Is there a question?
Well, I don't know. I just came here
Because they're chatting.
We're communicating.
Yeah. All right. Andrew, anything online? Okay, let's get back to the rest of our questions. Would you consider testing an early version of this if made, even if people say yes? Often when it comes time for you to ask them to test it, they're going to say no. They don't have the time. If it's not the solution for you, do you think it solves the problem for someone else? Well, who are they? What are their characteristics? Where will I find those people? And speaking of finding, where would you expect to be able to find this product or solution? So that opens up really strange doors. There are places where people think they should be able to find something that would never occur to you. So that's why you ask these questions. You may come up with your own better questions too. but I wouldn't skip most of those. Okay, so do we have questions about this? You guys want to take a few minutes and start working on this part of your questions, your customer discovery? We're good? No questions online? No questions in the room? Okay, again, this is available in Disco. So we'll work on this for 6 or 7 minutes. And if questions occur, just let me know. So now we're working on the second part of the questions. So you didn't have much time to work on the first part. Oh, good for you. All right. So now we're on the test the solution questions. This is where you would go back to find another group of people, possibly the same group. And then now you're describing your product or solution and asking them their opinions about that. Okay. So I don't see people doing a lot of writing, so we're just going to move on now. So now that you know that you're solving the problem and the benefit to your customers, you can work on your value proposition. So your value proposition is describing the problem in your customer's words, not your words, and then showing how your solution helps them and what the benefit is. But that's a different lesson. Here's the formula though. This does this to solve this. And again, as much as possible, you want to use your customer's words because it'll resonate with other customers. All right, after that, you're going to do market research, which is why we deal with that on Thursday. You also will do competition research to find out who else is making something similar. You're going to have to differentiate your product from what's already out there. And then you will start preliminary design. So you've got a prototype, it's really rough. Maybe use balsamic to do a wireframe of an app just to show what it could look like. Now you're going to actually have to get down to brass tacks, figure out how you're going to build it and what it's going to cost. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
For example, thank you very much.
So HubSpot say when you go through the HubSpot Academy, it say that you don't have to look at the your competitors at their website because you close yourself in the box of their understanding of the problem. If you ask to do a market research, is there any danger for startup to be closed in opinion of other people?
I would say, since you are one of the ones who is concerned about investors, if you do not do thorough competition research, then investors will feel like you don't know what you're doing. So even if, like the car, the competition for the car was the horse, okay? They're not at all similar. Oftentimes, your competition can be status quo. People are not willing to take the expense to change to doing something else. So if you don't do competition research, even though HubSpot says it puts you in a box with other things, it's still something that as a founder, as a business person, you need to know.
But it must be done after you finish your product or before.
Oh, I would do it before. I would do it before because if you have an idea who your customers are, how big they are, they can undercut you by taking 2 years and making their product so cheap that you can gain no traction. Yes.
You think of that, you talked about the Roomba thing that you have.
Yes.
When that first came out, it was a convenience. Like its competition is you have to plug in the vacuum cleaner and you have to do all this stuff. So yes, there was nothing like it, but if you could find how many hours do people spend cleaning their house, how much time can they reclaim by using a Roomba? So even though it's completely brand new, it still kind of relates to something that would be the other choice, even if it's not direct competition. That makes sense.
Yeah, because it's a time saver. I was an early adopter of the Roomba. And so it was like $300. It was pretty big, it was pretty loud. You had to like set up these things that would be barriers to it. And it didn't actually live all that long. And so I meant probably 12 years between the first one and this fancy one that's so fancy that I can't run it. But you know, it mapped the rooms, it mapped where the furniture was. For some reason, it thought that a certain part of one bedroom was part of the other bedroom. So it would clean, 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 then come over and do this like 3 square foot area in this other room. And it thought it was the same room. So like, I don't know how to correct to that. So yes, but you're right. So there's the sunk cost of changing. Like if you've got a software solution that costs you a lot of money to solve a specific problem or a set of problems, in larger companies, they are so reluctant to change because it disrupts work. It makes people unhappy. It takes a long time to ramp up again. So you have to make it like 30% faster, and it's got to be cheaper. It's got to be easier. So these are kind of all the considerations that should come out as you're asking these questions of your potential customers. Okay, if you didn't check in, please scan the QR code. And if you haven't done your pre-programmed survey, please do that too. We will probably only show this again on Thursday, and then we're going to skip the pre-programmed survey because you're in the middle of it by then. All right, any final questions?
Anybody online? Feel free to unmute.
Okay, so this is a lot of work, but in the end, it can save you from spending a lot of money on something that's not going to work. So, and once you do get customers, man, your first customers, you're going to be best friends with them because you want to go through the whole experience with them of bringing in your product and starting to use it and continuously improving it by talking to your customers. You want to be sitting on their shoulders and watching them work, watching them use it so that you can make your product better and faster than the competition can do it. All right, guys, we got mentors on Thursday, and we're going to hear about Tam Sam Song. So I think we're done. You're welcome. Thank you.